Fireside Tales. Hello, I'm Merlin, Mililli. Welcome to my fireside, where I tell weird tales within tales. And I drink coffee from my skull cup because I'm a deadhead. Do you guys know what a deadhead is? Somebody who's a very big fan of the Grateful Dead. I happen to be a deadhead. The Grateful Dead is a 60s psychedelic rock band. Now, what's left of the members have been running amok using Dead & Company since Jerry Garcia died. Jerry Garcia used to play lead guitar and sing for them. Bob Weir played rhythm guitar, and he's still playing rhythm guitar for Dead & Company and singing. He sang also. This is warm. So I have a reincarnation connection to the Grateful Dead, and the Grateful Dead has a reincarnation connection, and that's the story that they got their name from. Stories, I believe. I only know one story, and I tell the story that I know of the Grateful Dead every week here at Fireside Tales. Very warm fire, very warm coffee. It's cold out here in Mount Shasta. It's raining and yucky outside, so the fire's appreciated. It's just really warm. I'm gonna put some more milk in my skull mug and cool it a bit. So, every week here at Fireside Tales, we discuss reincarnation. I'm a firm believer in reincarnation, in that I'm a druid, and I just am a firm believer. I always was. I don't remember ever not believing in reincarnation, even as a child. But when I was 16, I started meditating, and I meditated on I think it might have been when I was like 18, that I meditated on the High Priestess card, and she gave me a gift, and it was a key, and it was a key to the Akashic Records. The Akashic Records are a meditative place. It's a meditative place where every soul has a book. And in that book is record of who, where, and when your soul has been. Or in this case, my soul, because I only refer to my book in the Akashic Records. I don't look at other people's books. So my book is very big and very old and very dusty. So there's a lot in it. So we've been covering what's in my book in the Akashic Records. And because I'm a deadhead and because I have a specific reincarnation connection to the Grateful Dead, every week here at Fireside Tales, like I said, I tell the story of the Grateful Dead as it should be told, as it was told to me by a deadhead next to a fire. So, there are a couple of things that I cover in regard to my book. And those are threads. I have these different threads that connect each life to the next. Excuse me. And one of those threads is fire. And another thread is fire safety. So I have water in the kettle on top of the stove here. I have water in my chalice. I have water in my sprayer around the corner. I also have a shovel down there. And pokey things. And a troll tube. Which is another story for another day. But nonetheless, if you have your fire outside, you want to make sure that there's no overhanging branches where you're going to put your fire pit. And you want to dig a pit. And you want to line that with stones. And then you want to line that with stones. And then you can build a fire in it. But first you should have a bucket of water or a hose source. You know, a water source where you can have a hose and a sprayer for the fire in case it gets out of hand. Then you also want to have a shovel handy in case your fire gets out of hand. And some dirt is probably wise. So I live in California, so fire safety is very important, but it's always been important to me. It's definitely one of my threads. Back when people survived by fire, it was very important to not burn your house down and things like that. Not burn your forest down, not burn your garden down. So, another one of my threads is meditation. And before I meditate in this life and in all my others, I have a little ritual that I do before I meditate to try to get the most positive result. I also do this before readings. I read tarot and runes. So I try to get the most positive results out of my readings and also rituals. So I before I meditate, I smudge. This is dried sage, and this is what we call a smudge stick. It's bound with string, the sage, dried sage. And when you burn it, it's cleansing to one's aura. So we burn it kind of like incense, and then you cleanse your aura with it, or you smudge. You can also smudge your house. I do my doorways and my windows and anything reflective kind of regularly. So that's smudging. And the other part of my little ritual is grounding. It's good to take off your shoes. I have slip-off shoes today, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. Bare feet on the actual ground, out on the dirt or in the sand, is the best. But this will do. I can ground even with my shoes on. But what grounding is like a cleansing for the inside of you and for your breath. It's a breathing exercise. So you want to blow all the negative out. Think an uber positive thought. And blow it out. So that you're blowing out positive and breathing in positive. So, another one of my threads is that in every one of my lifetimes, I seem to have been a psychic medium. I don't know if I knew that in every lifetime, but I was a psychic medium. So, in this life, in particular, I happen to spend an awful lot of time in the spirit realm, and I enjoy the spirits, and they seem to enjoy me. So the spirits have communicated with me a lot, and in regard to reincarnation, they believe that if a spirit is murdered, or if a person is murdered, then their spirit gets to come back and try again. So the reincarnated are also the murdered. And if that's true, which I have no reason to believe it isn't, according to my book, I've been murdered a lot. So reincarnation is obviously one of my threads, and then today we'll get into multidimensional travel and the stars, which are also threads. But now I'm going to tell you the story of the Grateful Dead, as I heard it from a deadhead by a fire. Once, long, long ago, there was a traveler. It was so long ago that she traveled by foot. One day she happened upon a village. As she got closer, she noticed a crowd. As she got closer, she noticed the crowd was squabbling. As she got closer still, she noticed the crowd was squabbling over a dead body. Quite literally, there was a dead person laying on the ground, and these people were arguing over it. And over it, because they were arguing over who was going to pay his debts. They were arguing over who was going to bury him and who was going to pay for that. So the traveler thought this was very disrespectful to the dead person laying on the ground. So she stopped the villagers, and she said, I will pay his debts. I will pay for a proper burial. And she did. She paid for a proper burial. She paid his debts. She prayed over his grave, and she traveled on. And then one day, decades later, the traveler came upon a life or death situation where somebody came out of nowhere and just saved her life. She said, "Thank you. Who are you? Where did you come from? Why did you save my life?" And the stranger simply said, "I am the Grateful Dead." It's a story about reincarnation, which is one of the reasons why I tell it every week, because this is a show about reincarnation. Some people say that it was a corpse or a zombie that saved her life, but corpses don't save lives. Zombies don't save lives. It was a reincarnated person who had been that man lying on the ground, whom the traveler had paid his debts and paid for a proper burial and prayed over his grave. He remembered somehow in his soul that she had done that nice thing for him, and he wanted to repay her. It was decades later. He was born again into a tiny baby body, and he grew up remembering the nice deed this woman had done for him. It's about reincarnation. It's no Buddhist story from the Tibetan Book of the Dead. It's about reincarnation, which is what the Tibetan Book of the Dead is about. So, every week, like I said, we discuss my book in the Akashic Records. And my book in the Akashic Records is, like I said, big and old and dusty. And it has a watermark about halfway through, where the first half is light and dry and sandy, and I have longer lives, much longer lives. And the second half is a watermark, which I think marks the Great Flood. And the lives on that side of the book are, well, everything is dark and wet and muddy, and the lives are much shorter. Much shorter. Like, they barely get out of the 30s. Short. And the longer lives in the light, dry, sandy part, believe it or not, I told you it was going to get weird, but they're like thousands of years long, which is weird. I know, but it does match some other documented things that don't seem to make sense, and that's the King's List, which is carved into stone in a couple different languages, which also says that there were a lot of kings that had lives that were thousands of years long. So this season, we have been discussing a life in my book in the light, dry, sandy part. And in this life, I was Hatshepsut. And she was a pharaoh, one of the only female pharaohs. Of course, she wasn't born a pharaoh. She only became a pharaoh when her father, Tutmosis I, died. She had no brothers. She had a stepbrother, Tutmosis II. He was a stepbrother because they had the same father, I believe, Tutmosis I, but different mothers. And the pharaohs took many concubines so that they could create heirs. So she married her stepbrother briefly until he died. Her parents may have been brother and sister. This was sort of a practice, but it sort of wasn't, because it's kind of hard to trace these things, and the way they did things was kind of odd. Tutmosis II, her stepbrother, was a lot younger than her, but she was only 12 when they were married. So it wasn't a serious marriage. She didn't take it seriously, and they never consummated the marriage. They weren't of sexual active age. She was 12, and she was considerably older than him. So her parents may have been brother and sister, but I really don't think they were. Though it was practiced then in ancient Egypt, but her mother, Akhmusa, probably Amenhotep I's sister. Tutmosis, her father, was Tutmosis I, her father, was Amenhotep I's successor. Tutmosis I, though, never used the title the king's son. So he was either Amenhotep I's brother-in-law, being married to his sister, or he was possibly Amenhotep's I, son of a lesser wife, one of the concubines. But Akhmusa had a pharaoh's line in her family, and she descended from the pharaoh's dynasty. As I said, the pharaohs took many concubines to create heirs. And regardless of that, Hatshepsut was either way a direct descendant of Amenhotep I and a part of the 18th dynasty of ancient Egypt. They both ruled over Upper and Lower Egypt. Well, her father, and her grandfather. So, today I wanted to discuss Hatshepsut's parents, which we just did. But I also wanted to discuss some things that she learned from her parents, her mother in particular. And that was meditation. Last week we discussed that my meditations to the Akashic Records are transcendental meditations. One thing that can be achieved through transcendental meditation is interdimensional travel. And one has to prepare and know what they're doing. You have to be in touch with your spirit guides. I don't recommend doing interdimensional travel or transcendental meditation willy-nilly and without any sort of preparation or knowledge of what the heck you're doing. The interdimensional travel can be dicey, and you can come out sort of messed up if you're not supposed to go to a specific dimension. There's only certain dimensions that we're allowed to go to, if you're even allowed. I know that I've straddled dimensions before in past lives, and so thusly I'm capable of achieving both transcendental meditation and interdimensional travel. And Hatshepsut learned both and practiced both interdimensional travel and transcendental meditation. So, stars, the cosmos, was a huge part of both of these practices for the ancient Egyptians. Last week I told you how I believe I've seen in my book and in my mind's eye that the Sphinx didn't always have a human head. I think what happened was some overzealous, narcissistic pharaoh later, after Hatshepsut, saw the need to change the head to a human head. But it used to be a lion's head matching the lion's body, and it was looking up at the stars. I still use the pyramids as a jumping off point for different meditations. And the lion was hugely important to the pharaohs until Hatshepsut's reign. Right before, during her father's reign, the lions, they kept lions like pets. They were all over the palace, everywhere, like dogs. She would scratch their ears and rub their bellies, and they named them, and they knew them, and the lions knew the royal family and all the servants and all the concubines and all the children, and they protected the palace. That was their job, and the pyramids. So they were all over that area. And one night when Hatshepsut was a young girl and her father was still Pharaoh, someone came in and poisoned all of the lions. And in the night, they robbed them and, robbed the palace, ransacked the palace, killed all the lions. And I don't think they had lions after that. They moved all the burials and the valuables that were in the burials all out to the Valley of the Kings, where Hatshepsut is buried, and her tomb is there, and it's one of the only females buried in the Valley of the Kings. She's one of the only females buried in the Valley of the Kings. So they spent a lot of time stargazing, and they would have used the pyramids not as tombs, but as during the day they were an energy source, because they would bounce the sun off of the pyramids and use water and all kinds of other cool things like juice vinegar batteries and eels, electric eels. And they made light at night for inside the pyramids, but they also would climb them at night and be closer to the stars. It was like a guiding point. Or you could also, well, what I do is meditatively go there and then use them as a starting point to enter into the cosmos meditatively. So the multidimensional travel and the stars and all the other threads I carried over from my very first life in Peru as an ancient Mayan. So I already had these things established as threads when I was Hatshepsut, and then my parents reestablished them. So the pharaohs might have been somehow, besides me, connected to the ancient Mayans and vice versa. So another thing we do every week here at Fireside Tales is I sing Deja Vu, David Crosby's Deja Vu. I did write a song called Reincarnation, and I think I sang it once, maybe twice here, and then David Crosby died. And so after he died, I started singing Deja Vu again because I felt bad, and I wanted to honor him. And it's the only song, before I wrote Reincarnation, it's the only song I know that's about reincarnation. It may be a little bit about deja vu, which is a phenomena that I experience frequently, where, you've seen that, like, one little snippet of time before somewhere. And I think those moments of deja vu come from our dreams. You've dreamt that, you've seen it in your dream, and that's where you've seen it before. But then there's those other snippets where you're in a city you've never been in before in this lifetime, and you know what was there 100 years ago. You know what's around the next corner. You know stuff about buildings that you shouldn't know. You know stuff about the city that you shouldn't know. But yet you know. You just know. That is reincarnation deja vu. I've been here before. Stuff. So, I'm going to go ahead and sing deja vu. So if you want to know what my reincarnation connection is with the Grateful Dead, you can watch our first episode, and I tell you all in that. If I had ever been here before, I would probably know just what to do. Don't you? If I had ever been here before on another time around the wheel, I would probably know just how to deal with all of you. And I feel like I've been here before. Like I've been here before, and you know, it makes me wonder what's going on. Under the ground. Do you know? Don't you wonder? What's going on down under you? La da da, la da da, la da da da. La da 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 da. worked up a sweat. So, that's about it for me today. Next week we'll discuss more of Hatshepsut and ancient Egypt. And I'll tell the story of the Grateful Dead again and talk about the Akashic Records. Did I say that the Akashic Records are a meditative place? You can only get there through meditation. It's like a metaphysical place. And when I have a memory or I read my book, I go to a certain section and I just touch it meditatively. While I'm in the library, I have a podium and I just touch the book and I have a memory, is what happens. It's not like regular reading. But I've probably gathered more useful information from meditation than I have from reading any book. And I've read millions of books. I'm an avid actual book reader. I just have found that I've learned more from meditation than any book. So I understand more about my soul and where it's been than most people. And it's due to these meditations at the Akashic Records and my book in the Akashic Records. Some people think I'm crazy. I think it's crazier not to look in these places. Jerry Garcia said that this reality wasn't enough for him. It didn't require enough for him. It wasn't interesting enough. And he knew that there was something more. And these multi-dimensions are that something more. And the Grateful Dead experimented with LSD quite a bit. They were part of the acid tests early on in the 60s when LSD was legal, or it just wasn't made illegal yet. So they did these acid tests, and when you take acid, you see that there is more to this world that, television and social media present you. You understand that there's way more in this infinite multiverse. Some people think that there's only 3 dimensions, which is silly. Some people around here were worshiping this guy that was like, come to the 5th dimension where we're going to ascend. And the problem with that is that's only living in 1 dimension. I prefer to live in infinite dimensions and in a multiverse that's multifaceted, multidimensional, all time happening all the time. So I prefer to believe that there are infinite dimensions. Not 3, not 4, not 5. Infinite dimensions. And like this camera recording this fire and me, that's 1 dimension. But it's like 5-dimensional inside the recording. But my perspective is that of an infinite number of dimensions, which is the camera, my dog's point of view, the fire's point of view, the tree outside's point of view, these fans, their point of view, and how they change the point of view, how the fire changes the point of view in the atmosphere in this dimension within. And it's all happening all the time, all within all these little infinite dimensions. And then I believe like there's other dimensions outside our galaxy, within dimensions, and it's infinite. It's infinite. Which is why you can travel through the cosmos in a meditation that's, probably a couple of dimensions at least. So we'll discuss more interdimensional stuff next week. And have a weird and wonderful weekend. Thanks for watching. A Mililli Studios production.